Thanks for staying with us. Oftentimes on the show, we've discussed the perennial issues of epileptic power supply and other associated subjects like estimated billing, metering, incessant grid collapse, energy theft, vandalization, and so many others. Today, however, we'll be discussing the plight of 86 million Nigerians lacking access to electricity in total. They've never had light. Joining us to talk about about what the government is doing in this regard is Abba Abubakar Aliyu, the Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Agency. Welcome to the show, sir. Good to have you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
So when we heard 86 million Nigerians have never had electricity, that's shocking. And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, because we have our regular complaints of issues of metering, issues of electric vandalization, but how is it that these people actually exist in this country and they've never had light? What's that about?
Thank you very much for this question. Just a little clarification, the 86 million are not the total number of Nigerians without access. Total number of Nigerians that some of them without access, some of them without reliable access. Based on our estimate, the total number of Nigerians without access is about 40 million. The remaining 36 are those without reliability. And the reason being, it's very clear. One of the main reasons is that if you look at the rate at which the Nigerian population is growing and the electrification rate is not going hand in hand, right? The population rate is going at increasing at about the rate of 5% compared to electrification rate of 1.1% growth. But apart from that also, it's for a very long period of time, the entire value chain of the Nigerian power sector is in the hand of the government, right? There wasn't any policy to give opportunity to private sector to come in, bring in their funding, and also commit and support in that drive towards 100% electrification. It was just recently that the government unbundled the sector and opened it up to the private sector for private sector to bring in their funding and commit. And that is why the trend continuously starts reversing. And you will see the private sector bringing their funding, channeling this funding, committing infrastructure to address the electricity access challenge in the country.
Okay, so this number is, significantly alarming. So what have you done so far to reduce this number?
So the first thing that has been done, more especially this government, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power, one of the first things he did is the signing of the Electrification Act of 2023. And the essence of that is to liberalize the sector, right? This is further opening up the sector to give private sector, to give the subnational opportunity for them to come into the sector and address that challenge. That is the first. The second also is another very bold move by the president by signing, approving the biggest public sector funding that would catalyze additional private sector funding to electrify about 17.5 million Nigerians. So you can imagine that audacious move by the president. He's approved a funding of the World Bank of $750 million, which we envisage will catalyze additional $1.1 billion private sector funding. So almost 2 billion channeled towards electrification in the country. This is something that has been done. Secondly, also, it's the implementation of the Nigerian Electrification Project, which the Rural Electrification Agency had completed, where we electrify over 8 million Nigerians, provided over 200 mini grids, electrified over seven universities and 2 teaching hospitals. So this is one of it. Then as we completed the Nigerian Electrification Project and we are about to start the distributed access through renewable energy scale-up project, the president, if you are following the news, was in Tanzania last month, where he signed the Nigerian Electrification Compact, which also committed to catalyzing additional funding. One of which that was referenced is the additional $700 million desert to power funding from African Development Bank, committing to electrify additional 5 million Nigerians. So a lot is being done, channeling private sector funding plus public sector funding to see that this is being done.
Okay. So I would like to understand, sorry Nima, after the electrification, with all the fundings that we're getting, how do you release this to be handled by the private sector? Will the government's hand still be in it? That's one. We've seen a lot of people who are supposed to get into the business complain that because of the regulations that the government puts on it, is not very profitable for private investors to get into the industry. So is there any plan to sort of allow government hands off so that this will be run like a business, or government will still, with through NEC, still be giving regulatory policies from time to time that will stifle the private investors that want to come into this electricity industry?
Very good question. The first, it's even before now, the entire framework that we developed is around the private sector. And this is for us to ensure sustainability of our projects. So government understands, one, it's not the best vehicle to manage this kind of infrastructures. Okay. So what the government does, most especially this present government, is catalyzing private sector investment by de-risking the sector. So what we do is, one, we go to this rural area projects, provide capital subsidies to the private sector that deploy its own funding. The reason behind this is, one, to ensure sustainability of the project. If you go and deploy infrastructure in rural areas, one of the main things is this is government property. I don't have to pay, or it's nobody's ownership, it's government ownership, so nobody cares about it. So what we do is we now incentivize the private sector to say that, okay, get loan, get financing, international, local financing, go and deploy this infrastructure to address the electricity challenge of these rural areas. As you deliver it based on the predetermined standard specification, you now come and the government will now incentivize you with capital grants to continue to operate it. Reason also being that these rural areas, like you rightly said, are not viable areas. The private sector would feel reluctant to go to villages and deploy that to do that. So they don't like to go in there. So that is why we incentivize them to go to this. And all the 200 mini grids that we deployed were purely based on private sector, public-private partnership. So that is it.
Okay, so I must commend this government for, decentralizing electricity, because I noticed that the NERC is now handing over to state electricity regulation, and you've just talked about, these new mini grids and all of that. But one thing is still a major problem. These private investors cannot secure the grids. We know the vandalization that the electricity industry continuously suffer, that, collapses the grid because people are stealing, public property that, ensures that we get power wherever we are. The North had this disconnection for such a long time. I'm sure you're aware of that. So what exactly is government doing to ensure that each place where we're generating this power have a, I don't want to go,
safeguarded.
It's safeguarded, or a special team, provided for them.
So the wisdom of the Honorable Minister of Power is, while he's working towards strengthening the national grid, which serve most the band A, B, and C. There are band D and E and those that are not even connected to the grid. So how do we also cater for them? So that is why this off-grid sector is giving it much attention. So our own infrastructure first is not connected to the main grid. So we go to this community, we establish the generation plant, we do the distribution and power the entire community, do the metering, including even the SCADA system for us to monitor every single electron that is being generated. So we ring fence an area and provide that. In the course of our own operation, we have not had any case of vandalism. Another reason also because for our own sustainability mechanism, we make sure that as we go to these communities, we create what we call the renewable or the electricity user cooperative societies, whereby these communities will own the mini grid. I do say this, I challenge anyone, go to these communities that we deploy this mini grid, try and to tamper with that infrastructure. You will see how the community will react because they have owned it and they have known that.
But what's the size of an isolated community you've worked with?
So it depends on the different communities. What we're doing, it's even a bit more strategic. We are now, the Honorable Minister of Power mandated the Rural Electrification Agency to develop the National Electrification Strategy and Implementation Plan. The plan is to map the entire countries. So we are saying that there are the so-called 86 million that are without electricity or reliability. Where are they? Are they in Makoko or are they in Zamfara? Where exactly are they first? And where they are, what is their quantity? How many households are there? How many, the number of people that are there? So this is what we are currently doing, mapping the entire country, determining. And we have substantial. And I can tell you, for example, last week we had a session with the Jigawa State Governor. We presented the data. We told him that in Jigawa there are 509 mini-grid sites that can electrify 1 million indigenous of Jigawa State. So we have that data, and in each community we know, should we deploy isolated mini-grid or should we deploy interconnected mini-grid or should we extend the grid to those communities? Just determining the most efficient, least cost of electrifying this community for us to achieve the 100% electrification.
Let's discuss timelines, because Nigerians hear these things and are thinking, okay, we hear when is the money coming from African Development Bank? Where is the government going to start it? So we understand the mapping is going on, but what times can Nigerians look up to for this to be materialized?
I was on the media yesterday on Channels TV, and I was asked this same question, and I want to commit to that. There are a number of different projects that we are implementing, be it the distributed access through renewable energy scale-up that we intend to electrify 17.5 million Nigerians, where we have already started the implementation of 40 interconnected mini-grids for the 36 million that are without the reliability. We are also working in 8 additional universities and 1 teaching hospital. I hope your university is one of the 8 that we are working on.
Is the UCH one of them?
So this is the University of Ibadan, University of Lagos, Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello University, and Federal University in Nsukka. These are the 5 next universities that we are starting with, and UCH is with the teaching hospital. So these are the things that are. So this timeline has before, by the end of this year, we want to commission over 60 mini grids. That's one timeline. We want to move significantly advanced towards the 40 interconnected mini grid. We want to complete at least 2 of the 8 universities that we have started working on. That is University of Port Harcourt, there is Nasarawa, there is Kogi, there is Yola, there is Imo, Federal University of Technology in Imo, there is Uyo. There's another one in Ogun, I think. So these are the 8 universities that we are currently working on. So before the end of the year, we'll complete at least.
We wish you all the best, because I hope to bring you back towards the end of the year for another second part of this meeting, because we had a lot of government of people come and tell us, make us promises, and they never follow timelines. So we'd love to bring you back again. Hopefully you give us some good stories when that time comes.
Please keep to your words.
Well done with the work you're doing so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's go on a very short break. When we come back, we'll move to our hot topic of today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.